One of the most important traits a dog can have is resilience. You see its impact in everyday life. It's the difference between a dog who can handle a vet visit and one who shuts down, between a dog who can hold still for nail trims and one who flails, between a dog who can roll with long car rides, moving homes, and a bit of chaos, and one who shows clear signs of anxiety. In other words, a resilient dog can cope with stress. And when your dog can cope, your life gets a lot easier. The good news is this: resilience isn't a personality trait, it can be taught. The problem is that everyone seems to have a different idea of how to teach it. So instead of guessing, let's turn to science. But translating dense papers and complicated experiments into practical training advice is its own challenge. I hold a PhD in biology and spent over 10 years in research, and in this video, I'm breaking down the 4 core pillars of resilience distilled from more than 300 scientific papers, showing you how to apply them in real life with your dog. But before we get to those 4 pillars, we need to get clear on one thing first: what resilience actually is. Resilience is one of those words everyone kind of uses. We all think we know what it means until someone asks you to explain it, especially when the question is, what does resilience look like in a dog? And without a clear answer, we might think we have a resilient dog, when in reality, we are far from it. After decades of research, scientists now agree on a clear definition. Resilience is the ability to go through something hard and not be harmed by it in the long run. That means no physical harm and no psychological harm. But it doesn't mean stress doesn't happen. It doesn't mean fear never shows up. And it definitely doesn't mean a dog is calm all the time. Stress and the discomfort of working through stress is part of life for everyone. What matters is what happens next. Does the dog recover quickly from stress? Do stress levels come back down? And does that experience help the dog handle the next challenge better? That's the ultimate goal of being resilient. But how do you know if your dog or any animal is resilient? In research, resilience is measured in 3 main ways. We have behavior, we have physiology, and of course we have the brain. Behaviorally, a resilient animal goes back to normal activities instead of completely shutting down. It maybe explores the environment more, it remains curious rather than withdrawing, it remains social. And in the body, physiology-wise, stress hormones like cortisol still rise during the stress response, but they don't stay high. They go up and then they come back down very efficiently. And in the brain, scientists can see real physical changes. Certain brain circuits become better at handling stress and regulating emotions. So resilience isn't a personality trait your dog is born with. It's something the nervous system learns. And that means something really, really important. Resilience can be taught, but the part that makes people uncomfortable is how you learn resilience. It does not grow in a stress-free bubble. If the nervous system never has to deal with challenge and adversity, it never learns how to recover from it. And that can be scary, especially if you care deeply about your dog and don't want to mess things up. And that's exactly why understanding a bit of the science and how to put it into action matters. And that's why we start with the first pillar of resilience: stress inoculation. Stress inoculation kind of sounds intense, but it's actually a very simple idea. Think of it like a vaccine. A vaccine gives the body a small controlled dose of something challenging so it can handle a much bigger threat later. Stress inoculation works the same way, but for the brain. Small, manageable stress now builds better coping skills later. And how do we know that? Across more than 50 studies and many different species, the same patterns show up again and again. Animals that experience mild, short-lived stress, especially early in life, grow into adults who handle stress much better. They recover faster, they overreact less, they explore more, and adapt more easily to new situations. Even better, these coping skills don't stay tied to just one situation, they transfer. The animal becomes better at handling many kinds of stress, not just one. Early mild stress changes the brain in a way that protects it from more serious stress later in life. So let's look at a classic research setup. In one study, baby squirrel monkeys lived in stable social groups with their mothers and siblings. But once a week, for about an hour, researchers separated the infants from the group. It wasn't necessarily fun for them, but it also wasn't super traumatic. After an hour or so, the infant went right back to its mother and the group. And later, as adults or older adolescents, these monkeys explored new environments more confidently. They had better focus and self control. They showed smaller stress hormone spikes that returned to normal faster. Early challenge taught their nervous systems how to recover. Rodent studies show the same thing. Animals exposed to mild stress, like being transferred to a new unknown cage or short physical restraint in a tight tube or brief social challenges, handle serious challenges later much better than animals that never experienced those temporary stressful events. So stress inoculation doesn't remove stress, it trains the response to stress. So what does this mean for your dog? Once you understand this, you start seeing stress inoculation everywhere in daily life with your dog. For example, grooming. Many people avoid it because it can be challenging or hand it off to someone else. From nail trims to ear and teeth checks to general handling. Holding still when the dog would rather move is a great way to instill resilience. None of this is fun for most dogs, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming either. I like to teach the collar hold first. It simply means that my hand at the collar means holding still. Holding still will be rewarded. Wiggling and pulling away makes me hold on tighter. I slowly make it more challenging until my dog learns that the discomfort of being examined is temporary and manageable. Crate training is another opportunity you don't want to miss. You start with all the positive stuff, crate games, food in the crate, naps, but there will be a time when your dog hesitates to go in because something else is more interesting. That moment really matters. Do you give in or do you follow through and turn it into a moment of stress inoculation? My friend Michael Ellis encountered exactly this moment with my puppy Ollie. I will let him explain.
Yeah, so this is a perfect example of everything we're talking about, right? So he's 5 months old. She's been having him jump into his crate in the car for rewards, right? And he's super into it. He's a very motivated young dog, right? And so no problem, he'll do that. And when she comes out to train, at the end of training and she goes back to get in the car, he doesn't really want to get in the car because he wants to keep training. So he likes the crate. He sleeps in the crate. He's had lots of reward-based training around the crate. It's not that he's afraid of the crate or doesn't understand that going in the crate's a good thing, right? He just doesn't want to right now because we were just training and I want to keep training, right? And so we walk up to the back of the car and he doesn't want to go in. He goes, nope, I'm not going in. And so she's going for her bait pouch. So I'm going to just toss treats in there until he goes in. And I'm like, no, like, come here. And so I grab him by the collar. He knows me, and we'll talk about mechanisms later, but he and I have a relationship. I whelp the litter. I've known him since a puppy. I am his decoy and bite work and all this kind of thing. So he knows who I am. It's not a stranger doing this to him, right? But he comes up there, he puts on the brakes. I grab him by the flat collar, and I got him here, and I pick him up to put him in, and he's having none of it. Like, he's like putting all 4 feet out. He's screaming. He's like, freaking out. And most of the time, what people would do there is go like, oh my God, and they'd let him go. Right? And they'd go like, oh, shoot, that didn't work, and go back to tossing treats. It's the worst possible thing you can do, right? He pitches a fit. This is a very black and white behavior. You just got to go through the crate door, buddy, right? And so finally, in the midst of all this fits of whatever, he shoots into the crate. And immediately once he goes in, he wants to come back out again. And I block him there. I'm like, nope, you got to stay there. And he's stressed. He's like, this sucks, right? And I have him sit there for a while, no treats. I just pet him. We hang out like that. And then I let him out again. We do it again. The second time, he pitches a fit a second time. Boom, he goes in, same thing. Third time, he starts to pitch a fit and then goes in. And then half a dozen times, he's going in, still stressed. end the session, go. Later, we bring him out. He walks up. One time he thinks about not going, and then he goes. And then after that, he's done. And now you come up to the crate and I add the rewards back in. I go to bed. He jumps into his crate. He gets a reward at the other end. And you see him now, like after that one lesson, like he bounced back to normal really fast, where he's jumping into the crate like, hey, look, I'm in the crate, sitting there waiting for you, ears up, like we're wagging his tail like, oh, look at me, I'm in the crate, right?
But there's something really important that crate training or handling drills have in common. In both situations, the dog learns that his or her actions really matter. They have control over whether grooming ends faster by holding still or not, whether leash pressure goes away by going into the crate or continues. This sense of controllability and agency makes all the difference. Even in research, it is very clear animals that experience controllable stress handle future stress far better than animals exposed to stress they can't control. Control changes how the brain interprets stress even later, when control isn't entirely possible, like vet exams or other unexpected life events. Stress inoculation is done in tiny moments when the dog thinks, I don't really want to. And you, as the handler, help them learn you can, you kind of have to, and you'll be okay. And stress inoculation in its smallest version or form can also be found within our next pillar, enrichment. When people hear enrichment, they think toys like puzzle feeders, subscription boxes, sniffing games, and that's not wrong, but it's also not the whole picture. It doesn't quite hit the essence of enrichment. True enrichment means, first and foremost, experiences that challenge the brain and body. The micro stress inoculations. That includes movement, novelty, problem solving, and natural behaviors. Across dozens of studies, enriched animals handle stress better. They explore more, they recover faster from stress, and their brains physically change. Areas involved in learning and emotion regulation, they grow stronger. Stress circuits become less reactive. Brain chemicals that support learning and flexibility increase. But nature really matters here. The most interesting trend in enrichment studies is that natural environments beat artificial ones. In one of my favorite studies, rodents were given access to dirt and branches, uneven grounds, and varied textures, and they showed better social behavior and stronger stress protection than animals giving artificial plastic toys. Nature itself builds resilience. For a dog, this means enrichment isn't about baskets full of stuff, it's about the experiences in the world. Sniffing, climbing, running, moving through different environments, using their bodies, nose, brains all together. And if leash laws, busy parks, or reactive behaviors prevent you from giving that to your dog, it's time to get a little creative. Drive outside the city to find isolated hikes, get up earlier, find fenced-in sniff spots. Real experiences trump anything you can do or give at home. And with all those experiences comes one element that is basically pillar number 3, social affiliation. This one sounds kind of soft, but the science behind it is really strong. Across more than 100 studies, social connection consistently protects the nervous system from the harmful effects of chronic or intense stress. Stress is easier to handle when you're not alone, period. Animals that experience stress with a familiar partner present or that are reunited with them afterward show less fear, smaller stress hormone spikes, faster recovery. Over time, rodents raised in stable social groups become less anxious adults and cope better with new challenges. So for dogs, social affiliation doesn't mean meeting every dog at the park or spending all day in a daycare. What builds resilience is stability. A dog who feels socially safe with you, with familiar dogs, with predictable people in their daily world, have a stress system that can take a hit and come back swinging. That means consistent relationships, not chaotic ones, No bullying from other dogs, no nonstop overstimulation with the kids in the house, no confusion about who respects personal space and who doesn't. A steady social environment is one of the strongest biological buffers against stress, and we owe it our dogs who we bring into our homes. And before we can even start to put all of this into action, we need to talk about the fourth pillar, individual differences. Not every dog responds the same way to the same experiences. If you have more than one dog at home, you see in real time how temperament determines what they like and dislike. Research shows that even when animals go through the same resilience training, they don't all end up in the same place. Some become very resilient, some moderately, some remained more sensitive. Temperament matters, coping style matters, genetics matters. Resilience training opens the door, but the individual nervous system decides how far it walks through. A bulldog may move quickly through training and copes better with challenges. A sensitive dog may need smaller steps, more repetition, and more encouragement from you. All dogs benefit from stress inoculation, enrichment, and social support, of course. They just take different paths. And when you put all four pillars together, stress inoculation, enrichment, social affiliation, and individual differences, you see resilience for what it really is. Not something a dog either has or doesn't have, but something that is created and built by you. Slowly, carefully, in small moments most people never notice. I found that experiencing small challenges myself, overcoming adversity that I set up for myself, and then seeing how much better I handle stressful situations that normally would upset me has helped me realize the importance of resilience training, not just for me, but for my dogs too. I'm Dr. Melanie, and I'll see you in the next one.